What is up, Internet Land? Zachamus Prime, aka Zachamus Prime, here with another Transformers third-party review, and I will not bore you with the details, but suffice to say, this is actually my third time shooting this particular review, so it should come off fairly smoothly. This is the... there we go. This is the Fans Toys Maverick, and I'd really like to say how much I really enjoy that there's a whole line of figures named after my favorite characters from one of my favorite movies from the 80s. Top Gun was a fantastic movie, and nothing that you say will prove that wrong to me. It's not my favorite movie, not by a long shot, but it is a fantastic movie. Anyhow, so this is Fans Toys' take on Silverbolt, and it looks decent. It looks all right. I do have, for comparison's sake, here's the Zeta Toys one. And, you know, in some sculpting ideas and concepts and whatnot, Fans Toys does look pretty good. Like literally, the first instinct when you pull these out and look at them side to side is that you feel like this one looks kind of doofy, and part of it has to do with the like expression and giant eyes on this one here. But the more you go into it, the more I think that Zeta Toys did actually a very, very good job with this figure. And Fans Toys is just so Fans Toys. And I know that all the Fans Toys fans boys out there are going to be like, well, that's the point. But the thing is that I don't know that that's necessarily always a good thing. Fans Toys is known for doing good sculpt work and, you know, good, interesting engineering on it and good paint work. But they're also known for doing, like, ridiculously convoluted transformations and having sometimes questionable tolerances and whatnot. So ultimately, looking at them side by side, the biggest thing I can give to Fans Toys is that it's got metallic paint. But you know what? Zeta Toys made a metallic version of this as well, which is going to have all the metallic paint you want. So that's an option as well. Ultimately, I think that for these, I mean, unless you're really interested in buying Fans Toys just for the robot modes, which I don't know anybody who's going to spend, you know, an arm and a leg and a kidney on a combiner to never combine it. But I don't know that the combiner is going to be all that great. It's going to be super heavy and just I can't imagine that not being obnoxious. Because of course I've got the Zeta Toys figures, as you saw with the Zeta Toys figure that I just pulled out just now. And when he's all combined up, he's a big figure, and he's, you know, a little bit obnoxious because of how big he is, and a little bit hard to play with because of how big he is. And when your end result figure weighs 3 times as much, since all these figures have weighed about 3 times as much as the corresponding Zeta Toys ones, having the figure weigh 3 times as much, a big, tall, huge combiner, that's really, really going to make a difference. And it's really, really going to be an issue. And it's going to be hard to feel comfortable around that thing sitting on a shelf. And it's going to be hard to feel comfortable around that thing when you're like, I don't know, just like walking around your house. And I just, you know, and let's not forget that the transformation scheme for the Fans Toys one is exactly the same scheme as what Zeta Toys is already doing. So, you know, it's not even like comparing apples and oranges. They are apples and apples. It's the same scheme, the same. They're going to be comparable looking combiners. Just this one's going to be all flashy paint, and the other one is not. So, unless you get the flashy paint version for a third of the price, by the way. Anyhow, enough with the comparisons. Let's get into the accessories. In terms of accessories, he comes with a gun, one single gun. This is his gun. And it's all black in that metallic kind of black that the black on this figure is done in. So it matches well. Sculpting, as usual with Fans Toys, sculpting is good, but it's all just colored in one single shade of color. And I wish that Fans Toys would not be afraid to put some paint apps on their guns, because it would really make these guns look a lot more interesting if you had, like, you know, maybe a flash of red on this optic somewhere, or, you know, maybe a couple different shades of gray along the barrel. You know, something to make it look like a real thing and not just a toy prop, you know. He also comes with an alternate head. There he is yelling, "Yarr!" And you can swap these out just by yanking that off. It's on a mushroom peg. And then you kind of take this, slide it in from the back. Because if you try to push it in from the front, it's just going to make this little transformation hinge go. And so there he is, yelling at stuff. It also comes with an alternate face. Let's see if I can get that without any glare on it. And it is basically the same as this face, except that this one has like a chin strap. Yeah, chin straps. Yeah, let me swap this back out, because I honestly prefer the more neutral expression. And we'll get into his articulation real quick. So articulation on this figure, his head is on dual swivels. He looks up and down a bit, and his head rotates around, more or less. The lower parts of his head will kind of bash up against the upper parts of this really low collar, but it's definitely kind of a collar around his neck. So that's something that you'll want to be mindful of when you do this. Arm goes all the way around, a nice little ratchet. It can go out. Keep in mind that even though this is technically posability, it's really a transformation joint, because you'll see that, like, you clip that in there and it stays in that pose really well, but to pull it out, you're actually, okay, so there's like a little bit of ratchet there, but to pull it out, you're actually unclipping it from that ratchet. And now it's really just hanging freely. And so as a result, it's not as strong as it was before, and it's not going to hold a position as well as it did before. And I mean, you're probably not going to be having this guy standing around in a tree pose, but, you know, something to keep in mind, that there's really only that much ratchet room on this guy, and then you have to actually disconnect the joint and go into the transformation joint. Something that I'm not really happy about when it comes to Fans Toys, because you pay a shitload of money for Fans Toys and you expect better. Bicep swivel right here, single joint at the elbow for less than 90 degrees of bend. Again, I kind of consider 90 degrees, and I know I'm not the only one, so I'm not trying to be ostentatious or self-important here, but generally considering, like, 90 degrees is the bare minimum for a good figure, you know? Having a double or even a pseudo double joint, like, you know, it'd be nice if you could, you know, get that sort of thing out of your expensive figure. Again, another thing, no waist joint. And that's the thing, is that it actually, okay, so it has a waist joint. There is a joint in here, right here at the waist, that is designed into the figure. It is strictly a transformation joint. When it's all in its robot mode, there's several things that block that. And you can't just, like, I mean, okay, the Iceman had a waist joint, but you had to, like, pull out the whole backpack to access that. It's not even like this. You would have to untransform half this figure to really get to that. And when we transform it, I'll show you where it is. It's a required part of the transformation, but it's just a little bit of a bummer that you can't get more than, 3 degrees of bend out of his waist joint. you just, I mean, it's just, it would be nice if somebody could design a figure that, had an effective waist. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Anyhow, the skirt armor is all one piece. So when you move it, you're moving everything, including the side armor. So it looks really janky when you move it. That and moving it way out of the way doesn't afford you any more motion than this anyhow, because it's not the skirt armor that's blocking this motion. It's actually, let's fold this out of the way. It's actually this piece of it right here bashing up against that that thigh. That's what's stopping his motion. And you can't fix that. You can't change that. That's just how it is. That's part of the robot mode, man. And so that's simply how it's designed. And so, yeah, it doesn't go all that far forward. It goes backwards about as much as well. It goes outwards for most of the full Van Damme. Not all of it, but we'll say maybe 90%. Doesn't hold it that well. But there's a lot of die cast in the bottom of this leg, though. So, I mean, I'm not going to fault them a whole lot. But, I will point out that when they're designing this figure, they knew that there's going to be a lot of die cast in there. It would be nice if somebody designed a figure that could, elbow, again, with the elbows on the bottom of the leg. The leg elbows, knees, we call them, knee joint for 90 degrees of bend, that's just fine. Tiny bit of toe angle there, and it goes forward and back. So, again, posability on this figure, surprisingly not that great, but, I mean, it's just how it is. Anyhow, let's get into transformation real quick. And transformation on this figure is actually not as bad as a lot of Fans Toys figures often tend to be. Often these transformations make me want to shove a keyboard down my throat or something like that. And this one's not really like that, but on the same time, it's kind of weird because, well, you start up here in the upper arm, and you transform the upper arm, and then you just leave it flopping around on its structural strut for the entire rest of the transformation, and there's no way around it. That's the order of operations. You cannot save it for last. You cannot. It has to be done that way. And it's just kind of weird, and I don't really like, hanging around a heavy arm on a tiny little piece of metal, even though, like I said, this is the third time I've shot this review, and it's worked out fairly well each time. So I also want to point out that not all Fans Toys figures I've reviewed have held up this well being transformed. I've had figures that gave me issues after the first transformation, and this one has been through a lot more than that. So you want to yank this all out. See, this is actually the very first piece of paintware I've seen. Focus. This little tiny bit of red dust. The very first sign of paintware I've seen on the figure so far. So kudos to that. But unfortunately, that's not enough to make me love this figure. But I'll at least say that I don't, outright hate it. How about that? So fold this all in, fold that. This all will come up. Then you want to take this, rotate it around, collapse this up, rotate this arm around. You want to put, let's focus, Grasshopper. Put this thumb in, rotate this. I don't remember offhand which way this rotates. Well, we'll get it once we open it. You want to split this right along here. That allows you to push this little panel out. Yeah, this is the right way. Because you want to fold that in, and then this comes back on like a little double joint. and that just plugs in right there. This little panel plugs in there, and this collapses up on its own double joint. And that is the arm all done. Let's do the other one. So again, pull this out, disconnect it from that transformation joint. You want to disconnect this piece here, and then you want to pull out this strut from where that peg fits into a slot right here on the side. Fold that up, fold this up, and then fold that in. Disconnect this. Come on. There we go. Disconnect that. And then just kind of straighten this out. Fold this panel in to cover that up. Rotate this all the way around, collapse this up, up. Rotate this. Open up the forearm, push out that little panel. Close this fist up all the way, so you want to fold that. Let me do this on camera because I didn't really show you very well on the other arm because the focus was weird. So you want to put the thumb in like that and then fold this up into as small of a box as you can make it. And then fold it like that. And then that will flip around into this open space here. And then it'll just kind of double joint back into there. And then this elbow will double joint back into there. And there you have both arms all done. Now with the arms done, let's focus on getting this backpack. So you want to disconnect this and disconnect this and get everything as far out of the way as you can get it, which unfortunately is not very much, but it's enough to maneuver, so we'll give it that. You want to fold this down, rotate this little metal strut down as far as it'll go. That will allow you to move this up and then move this back around to the front. And then you can put this back down, straighten this little ledge out, and then fold this back. And you want to make sure that this yellow section of the midriff tucks in into behind all of these panels here. So let's do that with the other side real quick. So we'll take this and we'll fold this. Focus, focus. I like that my phone is trying to keep things in focus, but it feels like it tries too hard sometimes. Rotate this up, bring this around, bring this back down, and bring it around past the other. Ta-da! Now you can take this and fold this back, put that head in its home. You can fold this up. It doesn't tab into there, but that's fine. We'll take these two sections here. They'll just come out on these little swing arms, tab those together, bring this up. And now with this, you've got these tabs here. These tabs are going to come around. You want to bend these little joints in such a way that there it is. You'll see that's poking out the bottom there, and then you can tab this in properly. If you're having difficulty with it, it might be because you've got these two little pins right here on this metal strut here. That needs to go into, there's this slot right here. Look up. There's a slot right here on the back of that area. When it's in the right position, that will slide in, and then you can just kind of slide everything back up. that will lock in this panel as well. And so we're going to leave him looking like a pointy goose here for a while. These are going to continue to flop around for the rest of the transformation, so we'll just have to deal with that. But at this point, we can kind of pull everything out of the way. And let's tuck in these panels right here just for simplicity. With all of this out of the way as much as we can, then let's get that waist rotated around. Your full 180 degrees. Come on, what's fighting me? Oh, this skirt armor is hung up. There we go. Alrighty. Now what we want to do is you want to take his crotch plate here. You want to lift it up and then extend out the legs into their Van Dam and then fold them down on this internal crotch joint here. And that will pull these out. Once these now are level with each other, then you can take the crotch plate, fold it back in, fold these skirt armors in so that they are nice and tucked away. And you might think that this is a good time to put this panel away, and it looks like it, but it's actually not. We want to keep that untucked away here for the time being, because you want to take the easiest way to tab this in, because this panel tabs into this panel via these two pegs. Focus. Via these two pegs right here, and this is actually the easiest way by far to put those together. Even though it's still not the easiest thing, it's easier. All right, so now let's transform up the legs. Keep all of this wing stuff out of the way as much as it will allow, which isn't always a whole lot because it's finicky that way. So what you want to do to transform a leg is you want to disconnect this knee cap, fold this joint in, or this peg, rotate the whole thing 180 degrees, put your thumb against this little pointy part here and push while you pull on the wing. That'll disconnect that out. This will open up. It'll allow you to take this little panel right here, slide that up, and then you can fold the heel in, and then fold the toe up. And then that gives you the space you need to pull this out and around and close that. And that is basically one all done. You can take this kneecap and bring it up on this double joint and kind of just park it there. It doesn't really tab in at all, but you know, you can park it just fine. And let's do the same for the other side. So kneecap, joint or peg, rotate, untab this. This side is ever so slightly different. And bring that panel up, toe up. This is ever so slightly different because you've also got the actual tail of the plane, but it doesn't make a big difference, just a tiny difference. Close that in. Now you've got tab, 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 and slot, 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 slot. And we're just gonna tab and slot these together. The getting everything into its final resting place is very, very finicky with this figure. So even though I'm tabbing these in, they may come untabbed again. We'll just have to deal with it. Double joint this up and park that. All right, so now we can put this into its resting place. There's a again, there's a metal armature in here with a bunch of joints. And this one's is probably going to fight you. So what it helps to do is just push your finger in there and push on that. And then send this all home. Send it. There is these hip joints here will collapse in, and what you might want to do is bend this a joint or two and then just kind of push on that, and it'll move up a little bit, not a whole lot, just a little bit, just like 1/8 of an inch or so. And then when you straighten this back out, you can put that tab in there. That's where that belongs. And now it's got issues with, let's deal with this. You gotta have, the wings have to come in from above to tab in, but these tabs have to come in from below. But this little tab here, which is a tiny tab, but strangely obnoxious for its size, has to again come in from the top. So you have to like do this weird waffle move with it. So tilt these wings slightly down, bring that back up, and then bring this up. That will kind of put these into place, but you don't want to squeeze them in yet. You want to tuck that wing tip past the wing and then tab them in. Boom. So again, with this one, kind of bring that up. Boom. And then bring these down, tab those properly. And unfortunately, I've never really gotten it all to fit together properly. I feel like this gap is more pronounced than it should be, but there's not really a way to shorten that. These little tabs here always want to come undone again, which is a little bit frustrating. And then we've got the arms. We can finally put the arms away, though, again, they are going to fight you every step of the way. So you've got this metal strut that's been hanging around on. You'll see that there's this divot built into it. That's designed to go over this waist section here. There's a groove cut into that waist section. That's where that strut will actually go. There's a tab here that'll go into a slot here. There's a couple little tabs here. Oh, let's put that in frame. Tab, tab. Those will go into these slots right here. And then there's two little pegs right here on the leg that will go into this one here. What's worked best for me is if you take and you do those two pegs first. And those tabs will kind of work in as well. And then I found that there's really no good way to get this last tab into place except to just kind of wrestle it. And it's frustrating that you'd have to wrestle it. I don't really like that. It's not fun. So let's get this one, put all that in place, and then put all this into place. And squeeze that down. Flip these in. And that came unpegged again. So we'll squeeze it again. And there he is in his jet mode. He turns into a Concorde jet. And I mean, it's pretty good looking. They incorporate a lot of the robot mode into the actual fuselage of the plane, which I think is great because the Zeta Toys 1 really kind of suffers largely from the plane on top, robot on bottom kind of thing. And this one actually, it doesn't completely avoid that, but it actually avoids that to a respectable degree. Again, I can't seem to get that to sit properly. I may have to just live with it not sitting properly. So yeah, it does do that to a respectable degree, and I think that that's admirable. But you know, it's got other issues. Like, look at this little floppy thing here. And also on the other side, the same thing, floppy. That just seems like poor tolerancing to me. That's a die-cast part on a die-cast part, but it was never tight. It was always loose. Even from the first time this has been transformed, it's been loose. In terms of an action feature, it does have this little thing with the nose cone. The nose cone on the Concorde is long enough that it makes it difficult for the pilots to see the runway when they're coming in for landing. So they're like, hey, we'll just kind of move that out of the way. So there's that. French engineering, what can I say? He does have landing gears, these two here that sit on the back of the arm. They just kind of come out, and then this one is in this little bay. You can yank that. Yank that. I said yank it. Oh my God. The last 2 times I filmed this review, I was able to yank this out with my fingers. And today I'm not. I don't know what the deal is. There we go. Yank that. And it sits. Plastic tires, but they do roll. So I'm not going to take the time to transform this the Zeta Toy Silverbolt. I did take some pictures and posted onto my Facebook page somewhat recently. Link down in the doobly-doo. So there's that. But no storage option for this, unfortunately, that I found, either on the upper of the jet or the lower of the jet. I don't know. I don't know exactly either how he turns into a cube. The only features on him that I can identify readily that don't get used is there's a big old tab right here and a big old slot right here. And I'm guessing that this tab will go into that slot when he goes into his combined mode cube to fit inside the combined mode chest. So, but yeah, I mean, he's not an awful figure. I don't know that he's necessarily my cup of tea. If you're hell-bent on getting all the Fans Toys figures, then yeah, I guess go for it. But if you're just interested in getting a good-looking Superion, there's easier and cheaper ways to go about it. So anyhow, thanks everybody for watching. You guys, if you've watched all the way to the end, which if you're watching this, then you have, you are fantastic. And I will see you later. Everybody stay awesome and be good to each other. See ya. Bye.